All right, then, since we successfully implemented the clerk authentication, so now what we have to do is we have to implement the main functionality of our store. So what I'm talking about over here is, for instance, where is our e-commerce store? I think I closed it. Wait a second. So over here, right, so if I click this create store option, right, so it is bringing this model for me to create myself a new store, so that we have to do it. So to do that, what I have to do is, from the chat cn, so from the chat cn, so you have to search for dialog. So if you search for dialog, so that is going to give you the informations how to install it and everything. So I'm just going to copy this, I'm going to shut it down, and I'm going to paste it over here and install it. So now that will install the necessary packages, and will create this complete a new component under this folder over here. So it's still installing. Let's wait. Yeah, it's installed successfully. Now if you get into this components folder, you have a new folder called UI, and under that UI we have the dialog.tsx, and you can see it's giving us a lot of custom components inside in it: title, description, dialog, and everything. So we can use this custom components inside to create ourselves a new stored model, right? So in order to do that, so first what I have to do is I have to create a new file. Wait a minute. So first, now what we have to do is, so we have to create a new file. So I'm going to create a new component over here inside this components folder. So let's create a new file called model.tsx, right? So inside this model.tsx, now what we are going to do is we are going to export this component, right? So let's say RAFC, React Arrow Functional Component, and I'm going to name that component as model, and I don't need this package. Let me delete it, right? So this model component is going to be a client-side component. So let's use this use client, right? It's going to be a client-side component. And for this model component, I'm going to import, I'm going to create an interface. Let's say model props. So the props the model should have the title, and that is going to be a string type. Then it's need to have the description, and that is also going to be a string type. Then it's going to have a Boolean value, whether this model is opened or not. So it's going to be a Boolean. And I'm going to have one more function, which is going to be on close, and it's going to be a function which is going to return nothing, so void. Then it's going to have a children, which we are going to render customizedly inside, and it's going to be an optional parameter, so question mark, and it's going to be a react node, right? These are the props, and we are going to destructure all those props over here. Let's say model props. So I need to bring the title, and I need to bring the description. Then I need to bring is open Boolean value. Then I need to bring on close function. Then I need to bring the children, right? So we have all the props now. Now inside this, now what I'm going to do is inside this, instead of this division, I'm just going to delete this, and I'm going to bring the dialog, which is, it should comes from ./UI dialog folder, not from your Radix UI, because Radix is the UI with Radix UI will automatically download from your chat CN. So make sure that you are using ./UI. Delete it, and I'm going to change this because this is not the proper way. From the @/components folder, we have the UI folder, and I have the dialog. This is from this particular location. We need to get this dialog, right? So dialog, okay, and inside here we are going to make the dialog content. Dialog content should comes from the same location, dialog content, and enter, and we are going to bring the dialog header, which is coming from the same location, and we are going inside that we are going to bring the dialog title, which is that's also going to come from the same location. Make sure that is being imported from the same location, and inside here we are going to bring the title prop, and we need to bring um, right? So then let's bring the dialog description. That is also from add components, and we need to bring that description. So please be very careful when we are working with this auto suggestions and everything, because that might cause a lot of time if you are missing anything. So right after the dialog header, create yourself a custom header, and we are going to bring the children prop, which is need to be rendered over here, right? So save this changes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna do our setup page. I'm going to bring the model prop over here. So I'm just going to say model, which is coming from add components model, and inside here I'm gonna say this is the store model or something, because we need a children prop and we need to supply a different props over here, right? Let's say we need to supply the title, which is going to be store title, or let's say what we can say, create your store or something. Description, this is the store model, and it's open, it's a boolean. By default we are going to make it, and for on close we are going to call that function. So save these changes. Now you should, so let me run this application, npm run dev. So now we should able to see the model. It should bring that model now. Okay, so we are ran into an issue. What is that? On close. Okay, so we passed an empty function, but why it's showing an issue? Oh, come on. All right, so I think this is because of the setup page, because this is a server component. So let's change this to client component, use client. So we don't see anything. Why? It says store model or something. Yep, we able to see the store model, but the model is not being displayed over here. Is there any mistakes from here? No. Okay, so I forgot to open the model. So here, over here, we need to supply. So model needs to be open based on this is open boolean value, whatever the value that we are supplying it from there, right? So save it, and here we go. Now you should able to see the create model. It's my bad, sorry. So we have to supply that boolean value. I forgot to supply that boolean value, but over here nothing is going to happen because we don't implemented any of these options, because we need to make sure this model needs to be persisted completely, and we need to have a separate state to monitor that model and everything. So in order, and we are not supposed to render it as user client, because this is the setup page. It needs to be a server component, right? So in order to do that, now what we need to do is it's now what we have to do is we need to create a separate state to monitor that model and everything. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right then, so now what we have to do is so we are getting an error. Okay, so why is that error is happening? Okay, so now we have to shut down this application. So let's shut it down, and we have to install a package. So let's go ahead and install that package first. So because we are going to create ourselves a custom hook to make sure that is needs to be persisted, so that we can access it anywhere we want. So here I'm just going to clear it, and I'm just going to say npm install Susant. Okay, so basically Susant is the state management library. See, so basically is this Susant is a state management library, so that helps you to access that specific state at any point from any specific component. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create myself a new folder over here called hooks. Inside that, I'm just going to create a new custom hook called use store model.tsx. Right, so inside here, let's import that package. Import create from where? From the Susant. Create from Susant. So interface, let's create an interface for that. So it's going to be use store model props. Open it. Is open. This is the one which is going to be the boolean prop. Then we're going to create on open function, which helps us to open this model at any point, and it's just going to return the void. And we are going to have one more function which is going to be on close, that is going to be the return the void as the function. Then export const use store model equals to create on type. So this Susant, it's going to create this state. The state is need to be the, so what I'm trying to say here is this hook, it's need to be a very specific type, which is nothing but these use store model props. Then we are going to create a function, and inside this function we are going to get that callback function, and it's going to return a very specific value object. So inside this function parameter, I'm going to get the parameter called set function. Right, basically we are not going to get any value, but it just set parameters enough. So here I'm just going to say is open is the thing. By default value it's going to be false. Then on open, whenever I call this on open, it's going to call a callback function, and it's going to set the object is open as true. Right, and if I call on close, that is going to call this callback function, and that's going to do this set. Using this set, I'm going to set this is open property as false. Right, say this changes. Now we have our custom hook. Right, so I need to make sure, because this is the hydration error, so it should not happen, because we are trying to load that user client component over the layout.tsx, which is the server side component. So that could cause hydration error. So we need to create a model provider in order to ignore that, and we need to serve it throughout the component. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a new folder called providers, and I'm just going to create one more file inside in it called model provider.tsx. Right, inside the model provider.tsx, now we have to make sure this as the use client as a server side component. Then I'm going to say export const model provider is equals to a callback function. Right, and here I'm just going to get that use state. Let's import that. Okay, and use the use state snippets. Don't click anywhere or don't press anything. And then I'm just going to create a new state called is mounted, M-O-U-N-T, is mounted, and by default it is going to have the value as false. Right, inside the use effect hook, make sure that use effect hook is imported over there. Use effect, it's going to have a function and an array of dependencies, and I'm just going to say set is mounted as true. Okay, so what I'm going to check over here is if it is not is mounted, that means we are still in the server side component. If it is mounted, then it means we are in the client side component. Right, so if not, we are going to return open it. Okay, so in this is the place where we are going to bring our complete models, whatever the models that we are going to create over here. So that's the model that we are going to bring it over here inside this model provider.tsx. Okay, so here now what I'm going to do is under this components over here, I'm going to create a new model folder called model, and here I'm going to create store-model.tsx, right? So inside this store-model.tsx, now what we are going to do is we are going to create a model which is going to have that create functionalities and everything. So let's make sure this as the use client. All right. So then what we are going to do is export const store model is equals to open it, a callback function, and this is going to return a value which is nothing but the model. So which is going to be a model which is coming from your this. Okay, so I need to change this. So I'm just going to say add slash component slash model, right? And it need the title. So title, of course, we're gonna create the title as create a new store, and we need to give the description. So description is going to be add a new store to manage the products, and categories. So let me make sure that you can see everything, right? So right after the description, I need to supply the value for is open. So basically that is open is coming from our use store model hook. So what I need to do, I need to bring that use store model hook. So let's go ahead and import that use store model hook over here. So import, open it. I'm just going to bring that use store model hook from the use store model, and here I'm just going to say use store. I need to create an instance. So const store model is equals to use store model, and use that store model hook over here dot is open, right? Then on close, I'm just going to say I'm just going to say store model dot on close, right? Inside this, I'm just going to say form to, oops, not there. Inside here we need to create a form to create the store, right? Save these changes, and I need to bring that store model over here. Okay, and now what I need to do, I need to wrap this inside this model provider need to be wrapped inside our layout.tsx. So let's go to our layout.home layout.tsx over here, and right after here I need to, or inside the body tag, I need to bring that model provider. So let's bring that model provider, save these changes. All right, so now we have our model provider wrapped inside our layout.tsx. okay, so all we have to do is to jump into, so we need to, so now if I run this, if you check it out, if I run this, we are not going to see, so this is not how we are going to bring this model. So I'm just going to keep it in this perspective, right? So what I'm going to check over here is, so if there is no store, we need to open this, right? If we have the store, then we need to display that. So that's we need to push the user to the dashboard page. That's what we are trying to do. But let's fix this issue, because it's need to open the model in a proper way. So what I'm going to do is const on open is equals to use store model. Make sure that is being imported from use store model hook. Then I'm going to get the state value from its state. Then I'm just going to access the state dot on open. That's the function. Copy it. Then I'm going to get the on close as well as on close. It's not on close. It's open. Is open. Is open. These two objects, right? Then I'm going to use this use effect hook. Use effect, which is going to have a callback function and the array of dependency. Inject inside here. I'm just going to say if it is not open, if it is not open, then we need to call this on open method manually, right? And it needs to monitor every time is open changes or on open changes. That's the array of dependencies that we are trying to check over here, right? So save these changes. So this is the, now we can see it is automatically bringing the form over here. But if I close this, I can't close it, right? So the reason why we can't close it is because we need to, one second, because we haven't added any of the functions for the close function. So what we have to do is to let's open up our model.tsx. This is the place, because we have the options to open it, but we haven't mentioned anything for closing it, right? So right after here, I'm going to create a function. So const on change is equals to, I'm going to get a parameter which is going to open, and that is going to be a boolean. Okay, that's the parameter of that function, and that function its parameter is going to have the boolean type. So if it is not open, then of course we need to close it. So close it, on close. So make sure that you call this function, and that function needs to be called every single time whenever there is an open change. So I'm going to call that on change method over here. Make sure C is the capital letter which is mapped over here. So save these changes. Now if you click this, it will be closed, and every time whenever you are closing it, this page.tsx is going to make sure there is a changes. If it is already opened, it's not going to do anything, but if it is not open, it's going to open it instantly. That's the reason if I click this, it is opening the form instantly. So now I don't need to display this store anymore, because we don't need to display anything over here. I just need to return the value as null. Save these changes. Now we can see initially if the user refresh the page, he's going to see this create new store option, right? So now all we have to do is to get over here and add a custom form to store the informations, to create a custom form, just like the same way what we have over here. Why I'm keep on closing that one? Let me show you. Okay, so here if I click this, so just like the same way, we have to create a new form and save the details into the Firestore collection. So, and that's what we are going to do next.